Some people are asking the question whether or not I believe that the white power structure involved itself in this lawsuit. People are asking whether or not I believe the elites of the world put themselves or had some influence on this case. And I believe they did, Art. I'm going to tell you why. Gabriella allegedly told Shannon, let's back up. She sent Shannon a text, Art, and she said, I need $10,000. She sends Shannon a PayPal link for $10,000. Uncle Shay Shay says, I don't hit the Cash App. I got 10 grand for you when I see you. Gabriella says, I need it now. I'm broke. Uncle Shay Shay said, I'm not sending you no money electronically. 10K when I see you. So guess what she does, Art? Gabriella tells Shannon, take a picture of the 10,000 and text it to me. Guess what she was doing, Art? When she asked Shannon Sharpe to send her a picture of the $10,000, she was setting him up right then. She was setting him up with the 10K. What do I mean, Art? Prostitution is illegal in Clark County, Nevada.
Now, before we go any further, listen, let me just say something real quick. This story, and I'll play a clip for further on in a minute or two. This story reminds me of two accounts in the Bible. Number one, Jael in Judges, and this reminds me of Daniel in the Bible. Okay. Now, to be ensnared is something that the devil will try to do, right? And when you are living aside the law, when you're living in opposition of the law, when you're living an opposition of God's way of life, right? You can be ensnared. In fact, the whole political game is about being ensnared and being blackmailed because people are doing things that are against the moral code and against the law, in fact, right? And so we see the situation with Shannon Sharpe. You know what I mean? Like, he's been caught and ensnared by his own behavior. And it reminds me of the story in the Bible. Daniel was somebody who was a politician, right? This guy was involved helping the King Nebuchadnezzar at the time, and he was somebody who was praying and worshiping his own God. And these people around him were jealous and had an idea to try and ensnare Daniel so that they could get him killed. How were they going to do that? They were going to say, listen, nobody should worship any other god except the statue of King Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, and when they end up doing that, Daniel doesn't do that. He submits onto God's law. But in doing so, he breaks the law of the land. Okay. And then gets thrown into the lion's den. That was what we call an entrapment and ensnarement by those people. There's a story in the Bible on Judges of Jael, a woman who silently goes into the camp. And because the man in there, okay, is wants some action from that lady, right? He ends up allowing her into the tent, and then she drives a peg into his head. There's another story, Delilah and Samson. Samson let his guard down and allowed Delilah to know the state secrets, and then she got people to tie him up, and then he was thrown against pillars. What am I trying to say here? That first and foremost, Samson is not a victim. He's a victim, but he's a victim of his own behavior. In the issue of Jael and the man that got a peg drive through his head, he's a victim of his own behavior. And Daniel is the only exception to the rule, because his one was that he followed God's law and then was accused and ensnared. But then he was freed, even though he was in the lion's den. In most cases, a lot of us are ensnaring ourselves. I've been there myself. You allow sexual indiscipline to take you anywhere and do everything. And now you got a kid or you got a baby. Now, I don't have one. I'm just saying that. But you know what I mean? I'm just saying that you got a kid or you got a baby, and you're asking yourself, what, how? And it's because when you follow down that route of destruction, the Bible talks about this, following that the promiscuous woman, it leads you to madness. Now, the elites can't have no hand on you except what you've given them. Now, of course, they can make up things. Let's be very honest. They can, right? But if they make up things, eventually it will shine. It will come to shine that this is not true. But the reality of the situation is, someone like Shannon Sharpe, he is doing something with this young lady, and she's trying to entrap him to take him out. Okay, all right. And I love what Dr. Umar is saying. He's breaking down some stuff. Let's listen a bit more.
Prostitution is illegal in most states. So the reason she wanted Shannon Sharpe to send her a picture of the money so she could have him arrested for solicitation of prostitutions. She plays dirty, brother. She plays dirty. She was lining up her ducks already when she said, send me what black man Art going to send a 19-year-old OnlyFans snow bunny a picture of $10,000. You know what that looks like? It looks like I'm paying you for sex. That's prostitution. Puffy is being accused of that. R. Kelly was convicted of that. And the other thing she tried to get him on, Art, is the Mann Act. The Mann Act is a federal
Mm.
law that makes it illegal to transport women across state lines for purposes of sex. When Shannon Sharpe relocated to Las Vegas from Los Angeles, she followed him. When
Wow.
Shannon Sharpe relocated from California to Nevada, she followed him. If
Mm.
she could show that she was paid to cross state lines to have sex with this ex-NFL superstar, he could
Mm.
be accused of breaking federal law. See, the Mann Act Art was created in 1910. And guess why the federal
Damn.
government created the Mann Act?
Damn.
To try to incarcerate the first black heavyweight champion, Jack Johnson. Remember, Jack Johnson was our first
Mm.
popular snow bunny hopper, right? He was the first black man who openly, even before it was acceptable, openly ran around the world with white girls. And so the US Congress, 2 years after he became heavyweight champion of the world, 2 years after Jack Johnson became heavyweight champion of the world, the US
Mm.
Congress created the Mann Act. He became champion in 1907, 1908. They passed the Mann Act in 1910. And by the way,
Listen, if you want to know more, go and watch the whole video because he's breaking down some stuff there. Like when I heard that, I said, "Oh damn, I didn't even clock that." But it got me thinking. As an individual, you don't realize, and I remember I said this, you don't realize your target. As a man, you don't realize as you become a man of means, of value, as you become a man who is more sought out, sought after, you don't realize you're a target by a certain woman. Right now, of course, he's put himself in a situation, so we're not going to try and pass it off as anything. But you don't realize that there are people who are watching who want to take you down, and people that want something from you. Right? There's a payday in it for this young lady, but there were also people behind her. Oh, Father God! As he was talking, the spirit just reminded me. Father, we thank you. It reminded me of Samson's story. There's a woman before. Everyone talks about Delilah, but don't realize that Delilah is one of two. There was another woman who was also pursued by the people, the Philistines, not the Philistines, but the people in her camp or whatever, right? Who were telling because he had made it, and Samson had basically said, "Here's a riddle. Here's a riddle. If you can get the riddle right, I will give you whatever. If I get this right, you're going to give me like 30 pieces or whatever, right?" They don't know they don't know how to answer the riddle, so they go to his girl and they put pressure on his girl, and his girl then becomes an enemy of state and turns against Samson. Why? Because she was not of the state. Had she been somebody that was of the Jews, right, of the Israelites, right, she would not have been pressured enough to be. She would have not been pressured to be able to cave in and sow him down the stream. But because Samson had chosen somebody that was outside of the camp of Israelites, that is where he's at. Now, of course, the Lord can use that because in Judges, the story of Judges is that people are doing immoral things and they're going their own way. So God uses those people going their own way as a way to still accomplish his particular mission, which is just a wonderful thing and a graceful thing by the Lord himself. But it's a great story because it shows us that when people are not aligned with you, they don't have, you're meant to be on a God lane. Right, and we're supposed to be going on this God lane together. Outside pressure trying to make you turn against me ain't gonna happen because we're aligned. But when they are not aligned, which is what kind of Dr. Umar's kind of showing here about black and white people, and I'm not saying that in general, I'm saying you should be aligned in the Christian faith. That's what should be underpinning things, the spirit of the Lord. In this aspect, I've just saw the parallel. I was like, oh, that's what it looks like. Now the person becomes an enemy of state, and they're trying to get you, caught up, whilst they were originally loving you and care about you. And it's because they never were with you in the beginning in the first place. And their allegiance does not lie with you, it lies with those people because they are making that young lady feel afraid because she is part of their group. Damn. And now you set up, and now Shannon Sharpe's got this whole thing. But he was warned. There was Monique, there was Cat Williams. I know there's a few other people who said this about him, right? And told him, leave these women alone. Leave these young girls alone too. But Shannon wanted the power dynamic. Shannon wanted the easy access to sex, which I understand. But it now got you into trouble because you went down the road of the immoral woman who will cause there to be fire in your bosom. Let me leave it there. Appreciate you guys. Stay locked and loaded. Let me know your thoughts.